So I saw some footage of you being accosted in the last fortnight. I'm sure you've seen it, but many people listening to this may not have done. So I'm going to play it now, and I'm going to ask you, as a person, as opposed to a politician, how it makes you feel. And I'm going to ask you, as a politician, why this is, how often this happens to you, and where it leaves you as a man. Just have a look at this.
Photo opportunity on a bike next day you're in your Range Rover with your bodyguard. Fill us back our streets. You hypocrite. Lives matter. How many contracts you put out to tender? None. How much commission was you going to earn from moving to the British
there, don't you? You're not the mayor of London. You're the destroyer of London.
Drivers, but I watched that, and as I say, I've got thick skin. That's scary.
Look, me personally, look, I've never allowed bullies to scare me. I've never been cowed by bullies since I was at school. I refuse to be bullied or intimidated by anybody. The distressing thing for me was I wasn't aware that it had been recorded, and my wife was very upset, my daughters were very upset when they saw it, my siblings were very upset, my friends were very upset, and a lot of the time when I experienced that sort of behaviour, I don't talk about it.
That sort of behaviour?
It's not uncommon for the sort of people you see to behave the way they do towards me. I've got to say, 99% of the time Londoners are wonderful. I mean, honestly, my experience this morning has been wonderful. But it does happen. It happens more when I speak to friends who are politicians to me than to others. Listen, I remember going to do a speech, and again, this is in the public domain, so I'm not giving away new stuff, where people brought along a guillotine as I was doing a speech, a Fabian Society, to infer that they would want my head cut off. And again, because they got into the public domain, my wife saw that, my daughter saw that, my mum saw that, and it upsets them in ways I can't describe. And that upsets me. And the thing is, I've always, James, and you've always pulled me up on this, said why I don't talk about some of the stuff I receive more. I remember the conversations we've had. And the reason is, James, look, I've spent my entire adult life encouraging minorities and women and others to get involved in mainstream politics, right? And my concern, and I'm really worried about this, is if you're a mum or a dad or an uncle or an auntie, and your niece or nephew or son or daughter is thinking about getting into politics, and that person is a girl or a woman or an ethnic minority or a religious minority, I worry you will say, look what happens to Sadiq. Don't do it. Why would you want to do it? So I never talk about it voluntarily, James. You've asked me, so I'm responding.
Yes.
And I wasn't the person to put out that video. But, I'd say to young people who are ethnic minorities or LGBTQ+ or disabled or women, the vast majority of people are wonderful. And, you can change people's lives for the better. Don't allow these minority of bullies to think that, you can't make a change. I'm not going to let them, change the way, I behave and the values that I have. And nor should you. Get involved in mainstream politics, get involved in public service, get involved in changing our society, because these guys want us not to. And we're not going to let them.
That never makes you think of jacking it all in?
No, not at all. In fact,
you mention your wife and daughters, and I don't want to dwell on that, but if anything were to make you think about jacking it all in, it would be them, right? It would be their response to these sort of episodes.
Yeah, and let me be frank, the only reason that I accepted police protection was because I'm concerned about their safety and my staff's safety when they're with me, because I was reminded that actually, when people make threats to me, when people make threats to my life, when terrorists in New Zealand or Finsbury Park mention me, it has an impact on those around me. And so it's my responsibility to my loved ones, whether they're my staff or my family, which is why I accept police protection. It's not something I choose voluntarily, or it's not enjoyable. But again, I say to your listeners who've got children interested in politics or who are themselves interested in politics, there have been bullies around since the dawn of time. All right. Intimidation is something used intentionally to try and stop people like us getting involved in mainstream society. And the choice we have is, do we want one-dimensional leaders who are identikit, who went to the same school, speaking the same accent, are in the same gender, same ethnicity, dare I say, same religion, or do we want a diversity and a plurality when it comes to leadership? And I'm for the latter.